income supplement. It was this government that actually increased the Canada Child Benefit Program. It was this government that actually brought in the tax reduction for Canada's middle class. It was this government that actually put a special tax on Canada's 1% wealthiest. It was this government that invested hundreds of millions of dollars to go after tax evaders, Mr. Speaker. This is a government that is more progressive than the NDP and knows how to get the job done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, we support our agricultural producers, and that is why this fall, at the initiative of the Bloc Québécois, the parties in this House unanimously called for full compensation for our supply-managed producers under 3 free trade agreements, the one with Europe, the agreement with the Americans, and the TPP. That is what Quebecers want, that is what our producers need, and that is what the Bloc Québécois is calling for. And it is insulting, Mr. Speaker, to note that that commitment is nowhere to be found in yesterday's statement. The government couldn't care less about Parliament's unanimous motions. It couldn't care less about the word it gave in this House. It couldn't care less about dairy producers, and it couldn't care less about Quebecers. The economic statement from yesterday clearly wasn't meant for us. Once again, Ottawa is spending our tax money right, left, and centre against our values and our interests, but never in favour of our priorities.
The honourable member for Brampton North.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, Sikhs across Canada and around the world will begin celebrating a very special year, the 550th birth of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak was the founder of Sikhism in the 15th century. He articulated the principles of equality, goodness, and unity of humankind. As we celebrate leading up to next year's birthday, referred to as Gurpurb, I encourage all Sikhs to continue to embody the principles of Sikhism and continue giving back to their communities around them. I want to in particular recognize the Ontario Sikhs and Gurdwara Council for their Langar service at the meeting of the World Parliament, the Parliament of World Religion in Toronto this year. Langar is an opportunity for people of all backgrounds to sit together as equals and share a free meal. Langar and Gurdwaras across the world provide food security to so many. Where there are Sikhs, there is Langar. This was at the core of Guru Nanak's work. Happy Gurpurb, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, upon release after 8 years on death row in Pakistan for blasphemy, the life of Assisi Bibi and those of her family are still at risk. In Turkey, atheists are jailed for questioning God's existence on Twitter. In Germany, Baptists are jailed for homeschooling their children according to their faith. And here in Canada, the Supreme Court has ruled that if a Christian law school wants accreditation, it must discard its biblical values. Religious freedom is a fundamental freedom. It is too often casually ignored by governments and courts around the world, both democratic and totalitarian. Religious minorities are especially vulnerable. If we cherish our right to freedom of speech and belief, we must stand up for religious views that we disagree with, both at home and abroad. Canada was not founded as a secular state, and it is not a religious state. Canada is a country that learned religious tolerance works best for all Canadians, both believers and non-believers alike. We in Parliament must do our job not to forget that lesson from our history.
The honourable member for Nickel Belt. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the Rayside Balfour 50s Club that just celebrated its 50th anniversary. Their main mission is to improve the quality of life of our seniors while promoting the French language and culture. I would also like to highlight the work of the Club d'Accueil d'Azilda, the Club de l'Amitié de Verner, the senior citizens clubs of Sturgeon Falls and others like Field, River Valley, Saint-Charles, Noëlville, Valley Est and Blizzard Valley for their excellent work on behalf of seniors. Thanks to the members of these clubs, my parents, my grandparents, my children and our children can live their lives in French in Ontario. The Official Languages Act, passed 50 years ago, gave the Francophone, Franco-Ontario community the opportunity to flourish. As our Franco-Ontarian anthem says so well, we must stand up. We must celebrate our place today for tomorrow.
Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Last week, I had the opportunity to visit the Renfrew Collingwood Food Security Institute, a vibrant organization operating in the Collingwood Neighbourhood House in Vancouver Kingsway. Led by Mick Turget, Caitlin Fung, and Nadia Elisel, this impressive program champions the importance of healthy and culturally appropriate food for everyone. They foster understanding of urban agriculture, sustainable growing, native plants, and Indigenous knowledge. They utilize local resources for greater independence and social health. They bring local concerns to the decision-makers who make food policy. Folks at the RC Food Security Institute believe that food is a human right, and that this means much more than meeting basic nutritional requirements. They understand that bringing people together to address hunger reduces isolation, builds community, and strengthens our nation. I saw this operating in action firsthand. I would like to recognize their outstanding work and urge this Parliament to provide federal resources to them and every organization working to ensure that every Canadian has access to affordable, healthy, and abundant.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, the creativity, imagination and vision of our artists are the brushes that add dashes of colour to our communities. I am proud to represent the riding of Alfred Pellan, which was named after a famous Quebec painter. Today, I would like to pay tribute to un grande uomo, Signor Umberto Bruni, who will be celebrating his 104th birthday on November 24th.
1914, Mr. Bruni, a teacher, a painter, a mural stained glasser, and window artist, has received numerous prestigious mentions, including the honorable mention of the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec, Queen Elizabeth II's Golden and Diamond Jubilee medals. So honored to have such an artist in my riding, for he continues to be an inspiration to many young artists. Buon compleanno, signor Bruni, vi auguro tanta felicità e salute e ai prossimi 100 anni.
Honourable member for Banff Airdrie.
'Tis the season of giving in Banff Airdrie. Each year, our communities show the real spirit of the season with many great events held across the riding, with thousands of volunteer hours spent preparing for Christmas campaigns and events, all to help those in need. From Santa Claus parades in Banff, Airdrie, and Cochrane, to Christmas markets, to Exshaw Spirit in the mountains, and a Stony Christmas. And Canmore Rotary has various events throughout their annual Festival of Trees. Crossfields Winter Wonderland gives families an opportunity to make crafts together and take photos with Santa. And in Airdrie, the Festival of Lights is collecting donations for non-profits, and the Lionesses have their Christmas hamper, while in Cochrane, the Activettes and Cochrane Events Society have come together once again for Stuff a Bus. And finally, on Christmas Day, Newcomers Cochrane is holding Jingle and Mingle at Cochrane Alliance Church to ensure that no one eats alone on Christmas. Whether volunteering or attending local events, I encourage everyone to get involved in your community this Christmas.
The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Rise today to recognize the association called New Opportunities for Vanny Aid of Montreal. NOVA, as they're known, does incredible work supporting single mothers in the Vanny region of Sri Lanka, and it's a region that was devastated in the Civil War. The organizations help these single mothers, whether they be widows or rape victims, by affording them an education and then bringing them into the workforce. And I congratulate NOVA on the excellent work they're doing. The Tamil community thrives in my riding of Pierrefonds-Dollard, where they have built the beautiful temple, the beautiful Morgan Temple, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not bragging, Mr. Speaker, it really is a beautiful temple. I congratulate the Tamils and the Greater Tamil Community of Canada for their work in promoting our Canadian values of opportunity and equality overseas, while at the same time contributing to the beautiful mosaic that is the culture of Canada. Thank you.
Honourable member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, recently I was proud to celebrate the Guelph Humane Society's 125th anniversary. For 125 years, the Society has provided compassionate care to animals and connecting them to people. As one of the oldest humane societies in Canada, the Guelph Humane Society continues to innovate, including through the Pets in Transition program, a collaboration between the Community Veterinary Outreach and the Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis that supports women who have animals and are experiencing violence. They offer pet safety planning and temporary emergency foster placement for pets of women seeking shelter from domestic violence. I want to thank Executive Director Adrienne McBride and the incredible team of staff and volunteers that help make Guelph an even greater place to live for all of us, including our compassions with whom we share our community and our lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, honourable members from Ontario will know that the people of our province are served by one of North America's largest deployed police services, the Ontario Provincial Police, headquartered in the city of Orillia in my riding. The OPP has a history of superb leadership dating to its founding in 1909, and today I want to pay tribute to one of its ranks who, earlier this month, retired following more than 34 years of service to the OPP, the last 4 of those as Commissioner. Vince HoC brought his accomplished academic standing and decades of experience to policing, from detachment commander to forensic specialist to deputy commissioner responsible for investigations in organized crime, to his role as commissioner, modernizing policing and crime prevention, championing new technologies, and ensuring a safe and healthy workplace across the police service. Commissioner HoC, we salute your service to our province and send you our best wishes in the years ahead.
Honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
This year marks 50 years since the inception of the Executive MBA program at my alma mater, the Beatty School of Business at Simon Fraser University. When opened in 1968, SFU's EMBA Beatty was the first of its kind in Canada. This program has built many careers, including my own, and I'm proud to say my son Eric is now experiencing this adventure as well. EMBA grads from Simon Fraser have helped drive innovation in senior management roles across Canada, and over the past 50 years, SFU's BD has continued to be a school of firsts. Whether it be starting Canada's first executive MBA in Indigenous business and leadership, or creating BC's first urban university campus at the iconic Harbour Centre in Vancouver's financial district, SFU BD has been at the forefront of business leadership education. I want to congratulate SFU BD, the Dean, SFU President Andrew Petter and their teams, and we're looking for many more.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, last week I had the privilege of visiting businesses across Richmond Hill. Organizations like Accolade Group, Laypack Technology, Link Pipe Incorporated, and Opus One Solution. These are international players who are excited by the new opportunities to expand thanks to our government's ratification of trade agreements with European, Pacific countries, and USMCA. Small businesses make up 40% of Canadian exports, and on average, firms that export pay higher wages and create more jobs. They also play a critical role in our economy. Following the fall economic statement, I'll be focusing on connecting small businesses in my riding of Richmond Hill with new opportunities our government has enacted and working with small business representative, the Board of Trade, and all levels of government to ensure it's well understood and well rolled out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
It's my favorite time of year when Stamps fans get to loudly cheer because we always pass the test. Calgary's the best team in the West. Jerome will rush, Marquet will score, Markin will have a screaming war. Down the QE2 will soar to go to victory once more. I'll be wearing my red and black, not that team, give our cup back, and get that horse out on the track. 'Cause Ottawa, you're going down. Stamps are the best team all around. We do whatever it takes. Sorry, Red Blacks, them's the breaks. We've got the heart, we've got the drive, and Ralph the dog is on our side. Dave Dickinson is good to go. Ye persons of Calgary will steal the show. A question after victory. Go, Levi, will you marry me?
My goodness. It's the first, I think.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, it is with happiness and pride that I stand today and draw the House's attention to the 75th anniversary of the Day of Lebanese Independence, celebrating the end of colonial rule over Lebanon. Much like other countries from around the world, on this Independence Day, the people of Lebanon and proud expats of Lebanese origin around the world pay tribute to all those who sacrificed their lives for the sovereignty and autonomy of their nation. We celebrate the future we are free to imagine and live. This reminds us all that we can make our world a better place As a native of Lebanon and a proud Canadian, I would like to invite all my colleagues to join me in wishing everyone of Lebanese origin celebrating in Canada and around the world a happy Independence Day.
Sa Lubnan. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, today is National Housing Day, and I want to give a big shout out to Saskatoon Crisis Intervention Services and Alberta, the only province with a plan to end homelessness. Housing first, community-based leadership, ongoing provincial government support for local expertise and efforts means Alberta cities are leading the way in this country on ending homelessness. In my city, Saskatoon Crisis Intervention Services is the home of the Housing First program, Journey Home. Journey Home provides housing and support to Saskatoon residents, the majority of whom have been homeless from 2 to 5 years. Mr. Speaker, Housing First works. In just 1 year, Journey Home participants had a reduction in the use of emergency services like police by 58%, a savings of over $500,000. Mr. Speaker, we can end homelessness. The solutions are already taking place on the ground. The government needs to step up sooner rather than later and treat the homelessness crisis with the urgency it deserves.
Honourable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, volunteer fire departments are the cornerstone of emergency and first responder services in many small communities across Canada. Every time they answer a call for help, the men and women who volunteer their time selflessly put themselves on the line. Yesterday in my riding, volunteer firefighter Daryl James Morrison with the Rosetown Fire Department was killed after being struck by a semi-truck while responding to another vehicle collision. I would like to express my deepest sympathies to Mr. Morrison's family, his colleagues at the Rosetown Fire Department, and the entire community. We are heartbroken by this terrible tragedy. May we never forget the selfless service of Mr. Morrison and all the first responders to whom our communities owe so much.
Honourable member for Scarborough-Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Bank of Canada rolled out the new $10 banknote featuring Canadian civil rights icon Viola Desmond. Ms. Desmond was arrested and jailed in 1946 for refusing to move to a black-only area of a racially segregated theatre in Nova Scotia. This act of defiance predates Rosa Parks' refusal to move to the back of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama by 9 years. Despite community support and a tough legal challenge, Ms. Desmond was ultimately found guilty of tax evasion for 1 cent in order to pay a fine of $26. The new $10 note will serve as a constant reminder of the work we need to do to advance gender and racial equality in this country. While we have traveled far to achieve equality in all its forms in Canada, we have a collective responsibility to do more. I look forward to celebrating the first black woman to be on any currency note in Canada at the Taibu Community Health Centre in Scarborough this Saturday. This will be an opportunity for us to recommit to achieving equality in Canada and around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales. Oral.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we were treated to a first. The first time we saw a Prime Minister so proud of putting Canadians in debt. A Liberal government that's racking up record deficits year after year on the backs of our children and grandchildren. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we now stand at a deficit of $80 billion, and there's still a year before their term is up. My question is simple. When will the Prime Minister present a plan to return to a balanced budget? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan. It's a plan to invest in our country. It's a plan that works. And yesterday was a very important day for our country. We explained our situation. our economic situation, and we're in a great situation. There's great growth. Unemployment is at its lowest in 40 years, and now salaries are growing, wages are growing. This is a great place for the middle class, for Canadian families, and we're going to continue with our approach. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, we didn't make this up. During the Liberal election campaign, on page 12 of their program, they repeated throughout the entire campaign that at the end of 2019, the budget would be balanced. The problem is, it seems that the Prime Minister believes that budget deficits will simply vanish as if by magic. So, again, I repeat the question to the Prime Minister, can he tell us simply, can he give us the date when the budget will be balanced? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will say again that our plan is working. It is a plan that was well considered, and it is the right plan to improve our economic situation for the long term. But at the same time, we are in a situation where our level of debt is the best in the G7. And this is a really good situation to be in for the future. At the same time, we want to be able to continue improving life for Canadians.
Finance Minister told a journalist that running the $20 billion deficit this year is, quote, consistent with what we said we would do. So now they've gone from breaking their promise to denying that they ever made it. This year, the deficit will be 3 times the size the Liberal platform promised, and next year it will be even bigger. And that was the year when the budget was supposed to balance itself. Isn't it true that we've gone from the budget will balance itself to the budget will never balance itself at all?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, what I continue to hear from the member of Carleton are buzzwords from first-year economic textbooks. What I do, though, importantly, is think about how we're going to listen to actual Canadians and what really matters to them. And we know what matters to Canadians. They want to make sure that there are jobs for their families for today and for their children for tomorrow. They want to see their incomes go up, wages growing. They want to see the economy that continues to produce opportunities for the future. And the good news is our approach is delivering on all those messages for Canadians. That's important.
Honourable Order. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, now we know that when the next time the Liberals put forward a platform and they make commitments in it, those are actually buzzwords and not commitments, Mr. Speaker. But you know, on November 14th, the head of Unifor, one of the largest media unions in the country, said it would pull out all the stops to help re-elect this Liberal government. 1 week later, the government decided to create a $600 million slush fund in order to entice journalists to favor this government in the next election. What guarantee do we have that they will not use this slush fund as a gigantic propaganda machine for the Liberal Party?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we believe in a strong and independent free press. We know that our democracy relies on getting information to Canadians. So we have been very clear. We want to continue to ensure that strong and free press, and we're going to do it in a way that is completely, totally independent from government. That is critically important. But Canadians need the information that they need to make the decisions in our democracy. That's critically important.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
What they're actually proposing is that there will be a government-sanctioned panel that will decide which journalists get how much, and that panel will decide standards and eligibility for this big $500 million slush fund for the media, Mr. Speaker. Now, isn't it true that this government just believes the job of the media is to shower praise on the Prime Minister and the job of taxpayers is to pay for it all?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's insulting to think that journalists can be bought off. What is clearly the case press in this country because we understand how critical that is to our democracy. We are going to continue down this path, a path we've clearly committed to, and it's important for our country.
Alors, l'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Rimouski-Necha-Témiscouata-Les Basques.
Outdid themselves in sucking up to big business. First, there is this back-to-work legislation that was drafted as a big gift to Canada Post executives and to please the eBays and Amazons of this world while throwing workers under the bus. Then we have an economic update with $14 billion for the private sector and crumbs for Canadians. No wonder former Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page said that the Liberal fiscal update is deficit financing the corporate sector. What's the next step for Liberals? Coming to the rescue of poor little Walmart?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that members of the NDP party should start talking to each other. What I heard from the NDP is what is critically important is that we invest in order to create jobs for the future, and that we think about investing in a way that we get clean technology outcomes. Well, Mr. Speaker, what we did yesterday was exactly those two things. We've made it so that businesses can invest in the future and create jobs for Canadians. We've made it so that we can have clean technology firms invest in a way that will allow us to accelerate our approach towards a cleaner environment over the long term. These are important initiatives, and I'm glad to think that at least some members of the NDP will come along and support us when they get elected.
The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, this back-to-work legislation is a wonderful gift for Canada Post, of course, which never felt the need to negotiate in good faith. It's also a wonderful gift for eBay and Amazon, which have been aggressively lobbying the Liberals. And the Liberals listen to them. Now we have a mini budget which gives $14 billion, nice gift for the private sector, and crumbs for Canadians. The PBO said that this update was deficit financing for the private sector. What next? A rescue plan for Rogers and Telus? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our statement yesterday was very important for the middle class and for people for working people. We are investing in job creation, and this is why we decided to do important things for the future. It's very important. We're going to continue with our approach of improving our economy in order to ensure Canadian success everywhere. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, bringing in this legislation, back to work legislation, is just like the Conservatives. They say they defend the middle class. Then they should defend middle class working conditions. Canada Post invented a fake crisis, and the government's ready to react with special legislation. Now, Canada Post will never have to change its position. Will the government finally allow for free and fair bargaining and not table this legislation? The Honourable Minister.
What we've been doing is supporting free and fair bargaining for well over a year. We've been encouraging the parties to reach the deal. We've given them federal conciliation officers, mediators, a special mediator who we reappointed twice, as a matter of fact, to get that deal. Canadians are suffering. Canadian businesses are suffering. Community members in rural remote communities are suffering. Workers are suffering. If required, this legislation will set out a process where employers would return to work while continuing their negotiations with an independent mediator arbitrator. We still believe a deal is possible, and I continue to encourage the parties to get that deal.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear the Prime Minister intends to continue the charade of supporting the collective bargaining process guaranteed under the Charter while trampling on CUPW's rights by forcing them back to work. I believe that's called sucking and blowing at the same time, and Canadians are not buying it. The Prime Minister has no interest in resolving CUPW's concerns around workload, pay equity, health and safety, and harassment. Tell us, please, how exactly is this Prime Minister an improvement over Stephen Harper?
Order. I encourage honourable members to be careful in their choice of language and to try to elevate and keep with this institution. The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Mr. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we've been working with the two parties for well over a year. We've given them all the supports necessary to reach a deal. We've given them supports through Federal Mediation Service. I've appointed a special mediator multiple times. The parties continue to negotiate. We are taking actions that will prepare this government to act if necessary. I still will say the best agreement is a collective agreement bargain between the two parties. However, saying that, Canadians expect us to take their concerns seriously, and that means rural and remote Canadians, that means small and medium-sized enterprise. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, once again yesterday the Minister of Finance disavowed his Prime Minister. Why? Because he tabled a deficit budget. This is a fact, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister kept repeating the budget will balance itself, but the Finance Minister contradicted him. Now, well, this was supposed to be the year of zero deficit, but it's the year of the $20 billion deficit. Can the Finance Minister assure Canadians that he knows when the budget will be balanced? The Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, I think there are many assurances for Canadians that our balanced approach, our approach is an approach that invests in Canada, that will help us continue to have an economy that works, a low unemployment rate, and a year of opportunities for Canadians across the country. At the same time, we want to be fiscally responsible. That is our approach, and it's the right one.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal economic statement was a slap to the face of Alberta families. Albertans today are protesting in the streets against this Prime Minister and his failure to get pipelines built. Nothing in the fall economic statement gave anything to Alberta energy families. Instead, he prioritized $600 million in corporate welfare for the media. Why is the Prime Minister trying to buy off the media in an election year instead of supporting Canada's energy workers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, independent journalism is a pillar of our Canadian democracy, even though these Conservatives disagree with that. Newspapers in Canada are going through a crisis right now. They currently employ tens of thousands of Canadians, and that's only half of who were employed in 2010. This week, we're taking action. We've created a tax credit for newsrooms, for donations to not-for-profit media, and for Canadians who subscribe to an online media. And those investments will be administered by an independent board of experts in order to protect journalist independence.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant.
Veteran Sean Bure had the courage to call out the Liberals' broken promises to veterans. When he did, the minister smeared him in the press and sent in high-priced lawyers to shut him up. There was nothing for veterans in the economic statement, but there was $600 million for the media, whose union has launched a campaign in support of the Liberals. Why is the Prime Minister trying to buy off the media in an election year instead of supporting veterans?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this conspiracy theory is insulting to the intelligence of Canadians and to the professionalism of journalists. The Conservatives think that journalists can be bought, and we don't. We think that their work is absolutely fundamental to our democracy. France, Sweden, Germany, the UK, and many others have taken action to support journalism without compromising independence. But newspapers are going through a crisis, and that's why we're taking action, and we'll do it while protecting journalistic independence.
The Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister tried to bribe the media with a $600 million bailout, but nothing for small businesses struggling with steel and aluminum tariffs. Each day these tariffs remain in place, workers and businesses faced uncertainty and layoffs, and this government has no plan to fix the problem. Why is the Prime Minister trying to buy off the media in an election year instead of supporting the workers in the steel and aluminum industry?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we have committed to supporting our steel and aluminum industries. We've committed up to $2 billion, Mr. Speaker, including money through the Strategic Innovation Fund and other funding, so that they can ride out this, not only ride out this difficult period they have, but also invest in the kinds of technologies that will propel them into the future. Mr. Speaker, we're investing in our industries. We've got the backs of our steel and aluminum workers.
The
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government's economic update shows that the Liberals couldn't give a damn about their election promises. Not only has the Prime Minister given up on balancing the budget, he's added $595 million to the credit card for the media, a simple band-aid solution which will solve nothing. At the same time that the Prime Minister is doing this, why is he silent about dairy producers?
The Minister of Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives appear to have a real problem with journalists and the truth. The Conservative leader's office has promised to, and I quote, to go for the jugular with the media. They also think journalists can be bought. This is an insult to the intelligence of Canadians and to the professionalism of journalists. This Conservative opposition should consult with other Conservatives around the world who have made decisions to support local journalism. Journalistic independence is a pillar of our democracy, and we will always protect it.
Order. I know the honourable member from Durham is enjoying question period, and of course I always enjoy hearing his voice, but preferably only when he has the floor. The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
November 14th, Jerry Diaz of Unifor, which swept thousands of journalists, called the $50 million media bailout in Budget 2018 nickels and dimes. On the same day, he announced Unifor's formal campaign against the Conservatives. On November 16th, media reported that an increased media bailout would be announced, and on November 21st, $600 million was announced. The Finance Minister just said it was insulting to think that journalists could be bought out. What about Jerry Diaz?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Well, Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives think that Canadian journalists can be bought, and we certainly don't believe that. Their work is fundamental to this democracy. Conservatives around the world have understood the need to support journalism and local journalism, as have governments in France, Sweden, Germany, and the UK. And I might remind the member from Calgary-Nose Hill that their government, too, supported media. Under their tenure, they increased funding to the Canada Periodical Fund. Independent Canadian journalism is core to our democracy, Mr. Speaker.
Hello.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, our media are in a crisis situation. Tens of thousands of jobs lost. But the Liberals finally woke up, but 92% of the money they're giving them will not be spent till after the next election. Now, who caused the crisis? Google, Facebook, who dominate online advertising, but Liberals don't tax them. Worse, they give them tax deductions as if they were Canadian businesses. Why is the Liberal Party not requiring anything of Facebook or Google?
Mr. Speaker, this government takes very seriously the Canadian creators of Canada, and including news media. And I want to stress in answering the honourable member's question today that our Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism has done exactly what the Prime Minister asked him to in his mandate letter. He has consulted with Canadian media and stakeholders to develop business models to support local journalism. And Mr. Speaker, this week he has delivered. This is good government. This is real change in action.
Honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Instead of standing up for the web giants, why don't Liberals stand up for Canadians for a change? There's nothing in the mini budget for badly needed pharmacare, nothing to address the housing crisis, nothing to correct the profound inequality that Indigenous children face in their badly underfunded schools. But there are Christmas gifts from this government to corporate CEOs. They now get to write off more quickly plush corporate jets and stretch limousines. Why is the Finance Minister acting like Santa Claus to Canada's wealthiest CEOs and like Scrooge to everyone else?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, the record is pretty clear. What's happened over the last 3 years is the economic approach that we've taken has made an enormous difference for Canadians. Not only have we made a huge difference in unemployment, not only have we brought in processes that lead to wage increases, but importantly, we found a way to lift 650,000 Canadians out of poverty through the Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Workers Benefit, and the increase in the guaranteed income supplement. This is important work that will continue with the investments that will be made to create future jobs because of what we announced yesterday.
Honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is clearly determined to rig the next federal election in Canada. He's changing the legislation so that people can vote without identifying documents and doing nothing to solve the issue of foreign influence on our elections. He's also set up the rules in an arbitrary way with respect to televised debates. Can the Prime Minister try to explain how he's sure that elections are for Canadians and not simply to profit the Liberal Party?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have put forward Bill C-76, which will enable more Canadians to vote. We are ensuring that Canadians who need help voting will have that access to voting. We are putting in place safeguards to protect our elections from foreign interference in C-76. We are putting forward the Independent Debates Commissioner to make sure that all Canadians have access to watching their federal leaders debate, something that didn't happen under the previous government because one political party decided not to participate. Mr. Speaker, we are absolutely committed to ensuring that all Canadians are taking part in our elections. And
the honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, so far Canadians have been saddled with an electoral bill that favors the Liberal government, a debate commission to rig the leaders' debate in favor of the Liberal government, and now an attempt to bribe the media with $600 million in an election year. When will the Prime Minister realize that he doesn't get to dictate the rules in our democracy?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, the irony coming from the other side when it comes to our democracy. What we are doing on this side is ensuring that every single Canadian who has the right to vote can cast their ballot. We, Mr. Speaker, are not afraid of Canadians voting, Mr. Speaker. We're also not afraid of an independent media doing their job. We believe that the media plays an essential role in our democracy. Canadians need to be informed, and it is important that they will continue to exercise their good work throughout the upcoming year and into the next election, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, it's time for the Liberals to come clean on the Statistics Canada file. The Minister himself this week admitted StatsCan kept him and the Cabinet in the dark about the demand to Canada's banks to hand over more than 1 million Canadians' most personal financial information without consent. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals get their heads around new realities in the digital world? Accept that Canadians should own their own data and should have a right to decide with whom they share it or not.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, our government takes the privacy of Canadians very seriously, and we understand the concerns that have been raised. The Chief Statistician, Mr. Speaker, has been very clear. The project will not move forward until privacy concerns are addressed. No data has been shared, Mr. Speaker, or obtained by Statistics Canada. StatsCan does not share or sell any personal information. Mr. Speaker, a Canadians' right to privacy and data protection will not be compromised.
Excellent.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, Statistics Canada has been intruding into the financial data of Canadians. The minister is responsible for any data leak with respect to Canadians' privacy. This guarantee made by the minister seems very thin given the attacks, the digital attacks we are now seeing in Canada. The best thing to do, Mr. Speaker, would be to cancel this program. When will the Liberal government put the axe to this invasive program? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about real facts. Statistics Canada is not sharing and will not sell personal information. It can absolutely not share this information. No one, Mr. Speaker, no organization, not even the Prime Minister can ask for this information from StatsCan. Canadians' privacy will be respected.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, the housing crisis in Indigenous communities across the country is getting worse. If at least the government showed it was making an effort, but no, it doesn't even look like it's trying. In his economic statement yesterday, the Minister of Finance could have announced immediate funding to contain the crisis, but he preferred to play Santa for the rich corporations. When will the government sit down with Indigenous peoples to create a targeted strategy and put an end to this crisis? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Started investing in new housing programs the day we took office, and today I'm proud to announce that close to 1 million homes have been impacted by the investments we've made. 14,000 new affordable homes have been built or under construction. 26,000 people who are at risk of homelessness are now in housing. 156,000 homes are being repaired with funds provided by this government. And for the next 10 years, it's a $40 billion investment in the country's first ever national housing strategy. We didn't wait for yesterday to take action. We took action on day one, and we will take action for the next decade, and we will not take lessons from the
Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
A year ago, the National Housing Strategy was announced, but the housing crisis in Canada deepens every day. There is still no sign of an Indigenous housing strategy. As we approach another brutal Canadian winter, shelters will be overflowing and more people will be left out in the cold. The most vulnerable are being asked to wait until the next election. On National Housing Day, will this government enshrine the right to housing in legislation so everyone can have a safe, affordable place to call home?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, my mother used to say that if you want to make a point, vote NDP. If you want to make a difference, vote Liberal. And on housing, you couldn't be more correct. My mom couldn't have been more correct. Our $40 billion housing program over the next 10 years is real money building real housing right now. But on the issue of Indigenous housing, not only have we made new investments, substantial new investments, there are new programs on their way as we speak. And as it comes to the right to housing, as it says in the National Housing Strategy, we'll be legislating a rights-based framework to make sure that Canadians get the housing they need when they need it. As I said, we're making a difference, regardless of what point they're not making.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Order. Mr. Speaker, today the resistance among Franco-Ontarians is organizing following the outcry caused by the Ontario government's decision to eliminate the Commissioner's position and to eliminate the University in Toronto. While here on Parliament Hill, the Leader of the Opposition won't denounce his boss, how does the Minister of Official Languages plan to help Franco-Ontarians and Francophones and Francophiles across the country? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his excellent work on the Official Languages Committee. He's from Madawaska-Restigouche. 7 days. Well, in fact, I'll say it in both languages.
7 days since the Harper... sorry.
7 days since the Ontario government cut services to Francophones, and 7 days since we've not seen anyone on the Conservative benches saying anything about this is completely unacceptable. Order.
Deputy,
the Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, throughout the week I've heard the Liberals talk about investing and that it justified huge deficits. The purchase of Australian F-18s doesn't meet the definition of an investment. The Australian F-18s will be a liability for the Royal Canadian Air Force and for taxpayers. The expenditure won't have an impact on operations because there's a shortage of pilots and technicians to keep them in the air. Will the government cancel this useless purchase immediately?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to providing the Royal Canadian Air Force the equipment that it needs to be fully operational now and into the future. Unlike the previous government, we will not neglect our NORAD and NATO commitments. Today, I can announce that we have signed the agreement with Australia, and I look forward to receiving these planes in spring 2019. I've also directed my department to prepare options to improve the combat capabilities of the CF-18s until the full competition is complete. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Minister is throwing good money after bad, buying a bunch of old, obsolete fighter jets. The Auditor General trashed that plan, and the Liberals' fighter jet plan has completely crashed and burned. And by purchasing these old jets, the Liberals are actually endangering the lives of the brave men and women who serve this country in uniform. When will the Liberals follow the Auditor General's advice, cancel this crazy deal of buying these used Aussie jets, and immediately buy the right jets for our pilots?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the previous government was serious about this. They would have replaced the jets 10 years ago. Our government has been clear. A modern fleet is essential to defending Canada and the Canadian sovereignty. The Auditor General report confirms that we have something that we have always known, that the Conservatives mismanaged this file and misled Canadians for a decade with no fighters to show for it. No. That is why we are requiring 88 fighter jets, Mr. Speaker, not like the 65 that the previous government wanted, to replace the CF-18s through an open and transparent competition that will make sure that we can live up to our commitments to now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I asked the Prime Minister if any current or former cabinet ministers had unlawfully released cabinet confidence information. He answered that he couldn't discuss an ongoing court case, confirming that a minister of his cabinet was implicated in an ongoing court case. What is the name of the current or former cabinet minister that is implicated in an ongoing court case?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the nefarious implications in the tone of that question are exactly the reason why this House has a rule about not discussing matters that are sub judice. The honourable member may wish to engage in absolutely unsubstantiated drive-by smears, but that is not the role of the House of Commons.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the minister is not answering the question. The Prime Minister has appointed 3 of his former cabinet ministers to high-level positions. All others are either still in cabinet or in this House. If one of those individuals has unlawfully released cabinet confidence information and is implicated in a court case, Canadians deserve to know. What is the name of the current or former cabinet minister who is implicated in an ongoing court case?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, again, I refer the honourable member to a colleague in this House who used to sit on that side, Peter Van Loan, who made it very clear why the sub judice rule is in place. It is in place, Mr. Speaker, to prevent debate or conversations in this House of Commons from interfering unduly in a court proceeding. A court proceeding is there to determine the rights of Canadians according to law and according to evidence, and the courts will do their job, Mr. Speaker.
Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, in the early 1970s, the NDP asked the Liberal government how it was possible that in Canada, Indigenous women were being sterilized. There was no answer. In 1976, same question, same answer. In 2015, Indigenous women came forward from Saskatchewan saying they felt pressured to be sterilized. We've been asking for action for 40-plus years, and yet in 2017, it happened again. This is wrong. When will this government finally address this issue?
The Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I think we can safely assume that everyone in this House knows that it is absolutely incomprehensible and unacceptable that the human rights, the reproductive rights of Indigenous women should be violated in this way. I am happy to report to the member opposite that we are actively working across the country, including with our provincial and territorial partners, with agencies who work in medical education, with doctors' associations, to make sure that this is very clear.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Yesterday, we saw disturbing images of Igloolik children suffering open sores and respiratory disease from black mold rampant in their overcrowded public housing. This is a shameful and completely unacceptable situation for Canada's most vulnerable citizens. As a G7 nation, Liberals continually claim that we are leading the world in economic growth, yet we have Canadian children, babies, living in third world conditions. Why is this government delaying housing funding and prioritizing corporate tax cuts over Indigenous children suffering health problems? What is the Health Minister doing?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say, and we'll make this point very clear, the Minister in charge has asked CMHC to immediately get in touch with the Nunavut Housing Authority. Substantial dollars have been invested and bilateral accords have been signed with that government, and we want this problem addressed immediately. We have put the funds that we have put in place to support Indigenous housing and territorial housing, as we signed the bilateral with the Northwest Territories last week, are substantial. And by comparison, I would ask them to look at their campaign platform, which offered $25 million to the entire country, and that's it. That's it.
Député.
The honourable member for Charlebourg Saint Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister gave a mandate to the environmentalist Stephen Guilbeault before he runs as a candidate in 2019.
Order. I'd ask the member for Vancouver Kingsway and others to come to order, and the other side as well. Order. The
honourable member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister gave a mandate to environmentalist Stephen Guilbeault before he runs as a Liberal candidate in 2019. His new special advisor on the environment is a staunch opponent to the third link in Quebec City. He even said in an interview, and I quote, "In all sincerity, the third link won't work. It's a political pitch to please voters on the south shore of Quebec City." Will the Prime Minister listen to Mr. Guilbeault's advice and block the third link in Quebec City? The Honourable Minister. Our government knows that we must take action on climate change. We have a plan. The plan is working. We are reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and we are growing the economy. I'm also very proud of Stephen Guilbeault, who is an environmentalist from Quebec. He will help us do more. We need to deal with tackle climate change. What is the Conservatives' plan on the environment? The honourable member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. They hired an advisor, Stéphane Guilbeault, who's opposed to Mr. Speaker. This is an important link for my riding, for Quebec City, for the region. Are the Liberals against or in favour of the third link? The Honourable Minister. Canadians wonder if the Conservatives are for or against dealing with climate change. For over 200 days, we haven't seen their plan on climate change. I'm proud that we have an advisory group that includes Stephen Guilbeault, another member from BC. We are tackling climate change. What is the Conservatives' plan? Well, I'll try for a second time to allow the honourable member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about Stephen Guilbeault. Everyone, including the Prime Minister or the Premier of Quebec, is in favour of the third link. Does the party opposite, or are they afraid to stand up to the Quebec Premier and tell him that they're opposed to the third link? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, I'm always happy to take a stand and to talk about our plan for climate change. We have a plan that's working. We're phasing out carbon. We're putting a price on pollution. We've made historic investment in public transit. We are encouraging environmentalists and companies. We're urging mayors and provinces to help us. But there is no plan on the Conservative side. They don't have a plan for the economy either. Now, I asked the honourable member to ask her question. I would give her a second chance. I would ask her not to heckle.
Go ahead. Okay. Mr. Speaker, we can all agree that every First Nation child deserves the best start in life. We know that decades of neglect have led to immense gaps in education on reserve. We can and must do better. As the Minister of Indigenous Services has said previously, the path forward includes First Nations control of First Nations education. Can the Honourable Minister please update this House on ongoing work in my home province of Manitoba to ensure First Nations children have welcoming and culturally relevant educational spaces in their communities?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member from Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia Headingley, for his question. Last Friday in Winnipeg, I was thrilled to announce, along with 4 Manitoba First Nations, that we are investing nearly $250 million to build schools in those 4 communities. This investment means those students won't have to leave home and can finish high school right in their communities. We are working with First Nations partners. We're ensuring that all First Nations students receive high-quality education.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, first it was the EpiPen injector shortage that threatened the lives of our children in August. Now there's the shortage of the antidepressant drug Wellbutrin that patients, many of whom are suicidal, desperately need. The Canadian Pharmacists Association says it's concerned about the growing number of drug shortages in Canada. Continued drug shortages are unacceptable, and the minister has failed to act. Why have the Liberals failed to secure these vital medications for Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, protecting the health and safety of Canadians is my top priority. One of my most important responsibilities as Health Minister is ensuring that Canadians are well informed about medicines that they rely on. We are taking important steps to address the complex issue of drug shortages. As a part of our mandatory drug shortage reporting regulations, we launched a third-party website, and that's entitled drugshortagescanada.ca. Drug shortages are a complex global problem, and we are working with partners on the ground to find a solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Timmins, James Bay.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has an obligation to defend the linguistic rights of Francophones across the country. But he's still refusing to call Doug Ford directly to discuss the attack against the Franco-Ontarian community. Why? His reluctance will send a clear message to Doug Ford that these attacks are acceptable. It's the Prime Minister's role to defend Francophones in Canada. Why is the Prime Minister refusing to fight for Franco-Ontarians? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our Prime Minister and I are proud to support Franco-Ontarians who are being attacked. Their right to live in French is under attack. The Prime Minister has been clear, has clearly denounced the cuts. And we, as a government, are urging the leader of the Conservative Party to also denounce this. We stand in solidarity with Franco-Ontarians. This week I had an opportunity to
Member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, in New Brunswick Southwest, there are incredible entrepreneurs with innovative ideas that want to start up and scale up their companies, but often, due to lack of access to valuable capital, are unable to. Could the Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion update this House on what the government is doing to support the scale-up of Canadian companies? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member from New Brunswick Southwest for her question. Our government is working hard to help Canadian small and medium-sized companies start up, scale up, and access new markets. A strong venture capital ecosystem that invests in innovative Canadians and young companies is essential to achieving this goal. That's why yesterday our government announced an additional $50 million to increase venture capital available to Canadian clean tech companies. Mr. Speaker, these investments will help support Canadian SMEs and entrepreneurs scale up and create great new Canadian jobs.
Honourable member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General said regular Canadians will automatically lose their credits or benefits if they can't give the Canada Revenue Agency a document within 90 days. But if you're an offshore tax dodger, the agency will give you months or maybe even years to comply, or they'll simply close the file without collecting any taxes. This minister promised a client-focused CRA and action on offshore evasion. So why is she protecting offshore tax dodgers and failing to provide basic service to regular Canadians?
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has chosen to invest in a tax system that is fair and tailored to the needs of all Canadians. I have no lessons to learn from the Harper Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, who, in addition to having not invested in services, cut staff, cut training, Mr. Speaker. We put in place a main service delivery point to deliver the best services to Canadians. We have a client-focused approach. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, I now understand why the Liberals are called red. It would be harder to be redder than in that economic statement yesterday. We'll be in the red for years. A lovely Liberal red. And no one can say it's Quebec's fault because there's nothing in it for us. Nothing for Davy, nothing for our farmers, nothing for health, nothing for education. When will the Minister of Finance start respecting Quebecers and taking our priorities, like healthcare, for example, into account? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that our economic statement included measures for all Canadians across the country. We put the interests of Canadians first with investments that will have an impact, will create jobs across the country, including in Quebec. All players, all parts of the country will be benefited by our measures, and that is very important.
Joliette.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. A good thing, Mr. Speaker. If you want to waste 4 hours of your life for nothing, head into a lockup to look for something good for Quebec in yesterday's economic statement. That's called wasting one's time. The government increased the deficit. It's crazy. But there's not even an additional cent for health care. That's quite the feat. Why has the government decided to refuse to meet Quebecers' real needs? And why isn't it restoring the health transfer escalator? The Honourable Minister. There are needs across the country. We are focusing on jobs across the country, and it's important to invest for Canada and for Quebec. Our approach will work for the future.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As all members in this place know, the IPCC report was a very stern warning that the planet is on a course to disaster. But a more recent report published in Nature Communications says that Canada's status among the world is about the worst. We rank with China and Russia, and if all countries followed our lead, we'd go to 5.1 degrees Celsius global average temperature increase. When will this government commit to a path that leads to 1.5 degrees, the Paris target?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for advocacy on the environment and climate change. I look forward to heading to COP24 with her in Poland this year to ensure that we get a robust rulebook and action on climate change. We have a serious plan to tackle climate change after a decade of inaction under the previous government where they did nothing to tackle climate change. I'm also proud yesterday that we added to our plan through the fall economic statement. We introduced incentives for solar and wind power. We also announced a new climate action advisory committee with Stephen Guilbeault and Tamara Vrooman that are going to help us advance ambition action.
Honourable Member for Beauport, order. Honourable Member for Beauport Limoilou is rising on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I have to tell you that the Minister of Official Languages misled this House today when she said that no Conservative member of this House had publicly called out the actions of the Ford government. But I did so, and so did a number of MPs. I thank the honourable member, but I believe that is debate. The honourable member for Beauport, Côte de Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix is rising on a point of order. Order.
Alors.
Order. The honourable member is rising on a point of order.